Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Outside the Rally. I am your host, Dean Baer. Tonight, I will be joined by Todd Boss in a little bit. And here we are right here with number 5 ranked player on the IRT, Alvaro Beltran, followed by 2020 Hall of Fame inductee, Mr. Gregg Peck. We will break down the rest of the fantasy bracket and see who wins the first ever IRT fan bracket competition. First up, you see him on the screen there, Alvaro Beltran, aka the Mexican Magician. Alvaro, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, hello, Dean. Thank you for having me, man. And hopefully, we have a little fun today.
It's always fun if Alvaro's on the screen. I say that all the time when I interview you and Danny. You guys are just a pleasure to kind of be with, to be honest. So Alvaro, the family, everybody's good. Everyone's being safe right now.
Yes, everyone's good. Trying to stay in home as much as we can. Staying active, doing a little riding the bicycle, doing whatever we can. Lift some weights. The guys give me a hard time because I use the purple and the pink weight. So
The little ones.
those are like 5 and 10 pounds. But I mean, it's better than not doing anything, right?
I agree with you. Let's get right into it, Alvaro. I have a couple of questions for you. You know, you've played the tour longer than most anyone else in the top 5, except Rocky Carson. What's one thing that has changed that has had a positive effect on the tour?
Um, well, I think today there's a bunch of young players that have a lot of experience. Before, you used to play the tour and you played somebody like 18, 19, and there was a big process for them, like to get together. And nowadays, since they have the junior programs and the junior worlds and so many events, they're 19, 20, but they're like veterans of the sport. They know they understand the game, how it's played. There's so much information nowadays for everyone to how to train, how to be better. So I think that really changed the game in a positive way.
I think I totally agree with what you're saying. So, what player when you were younger did you admire the most when you started playing racquetball?
I thought about that question. I mean, I had so many role models, so many players I looked forward. Um, when I started when I started playing, there was guys in my club: Arturo Martin, um, Francisco Martin. My dad. I look forward. I check their technique and how they play the game. Then afterwards, when I started playing at national events, it was um, Hippie Quevedo. Those are the legends of our from Mexico. They were the top players. Alvaro Maldonado, um, Federico Alvarez. He's in the chat all the time. He's one of the racquetball geeks, and he's very passionate about it. Um, and then when I started playing the tour, I looked forward on the top guys: John Ellis, Cliff Swain, Satsi Manchek, um, Jason Menino. So I had so many players to look forward.
That's a very interesting. It comes right into my next thing with you, Alvaro, is that congratulations on coming in second place at the Mexican Nationals at your very young age of 26, I think. All those up and coming Mexican good racquetball players and the fruits from all those events, they're all in there. I was there. That was some event, but it was at your home club. And what was that like? Because obviously your family was able to be there. Was it an advantage to have that at your own club?
Um, I don't know if it was an advantage or disadvantage, but it was very special. I mean, my first national title I won it in that club in that same place. I was 17, and almost 23 years later to make the team again and make the finals. I mean, it was pretty incredible for me. So it was very special. I don't know if it was an advantage or disadvantage. I mean, you can't. Uh, the only thing is you don't need an extra motivation or think about it. It's just like it just is naturally. It's your family, your friends. So it's fun. Sometimes it can go the other way. That's why I'm not sure if there's an advantage or disadvantage. It was just a special moment for me.
Well, like I said, I was there. I saw it. You had your family around, and it was a pleasure. And it was interesting because I saw you as not only Alvaro Beltran, the excellent racquetball player, but a dad and a son and a brother.
Yeah.
So it was special. But you know what, Alvaro, this is our first ever fantasy racquetball tournament. Is happening right now, and you're in the quarterfinals versus Andre Perea. You lead the head-to-head matchup 5-3. However, the last meeting, Andre won in 3 games. And before we get your take on this match, let's bring in Todd Boss from ProRacquetballStats.com, the famous Todd Boss. Todd, before we get started, what's your take on this match?
So here's my take. I love 4-5 matchups. They're always fun. They're always close. The players are ranked 4th and 5th for a reason, because they're usually pretty even over the course of their careers. As you can see, Alvi actually leads head-to-head on the tour over Andre 5-3. But they've met twice this season. If I scroll down on their head-to-head, they've met twice this season, and both of them
I can't hear.
were were tiebreaker wins for Andre. Now, the most meeting was in Chicago, where Andre typically plays pretty well, but Andre's been on a kind of a poor run of form lately. Meanwhile, I think, as we've just discussed, Alvaro is on a great run of form right now. I think he's hot, and I think he wins this game. I think he wins in 2.
So Alvaro in 2. I'm not sure if Alvaro is hearing us.
Now
Now
I can.
Okay, so Todd Boss has you winning in 2 straight. So interesting. Here's my take. Alvaro had a tough 3-game match in the 16s in this tournament against the rising Montoya. And notably, Alvaro, you've never beaten Montoya on an IRT. He's 3 wins to 0.
I have, but in satellites.
In satellites. Okay, so this is definitely going to a tiebreaker because Alvaro, you love tiebreakers. You said it's easier to get to 11 than 15. So I'm going to say that so far this will be a tiebreaker. Like I said the other night, great season by Alvaro this season. You went to the semis 4 times, and Andre's 2020 has just not gone well outside of Chicago. Did Andre get his racquetball mojo back? I'm not betting against Alvaro Beltran. I'm just not. He always seems to pull out these matches. When you have him down and out, he seems to come on top. Yes, he lost to Andre in Chicago, but maybe that's due to the fact that he also played doubles. Very quality tiebreaker here, maybe something like an 11-5 breaker. But out of the gate from the breaker, Alvaro Beltran all the way 11-5. I got you winning that match as well, Alvaro. So, Alvaro, tell me what it's like to play a guy like Andre Perea, and what do you think is going to happen in a match like this?
Okay, first of all, good picks, guys. Congratulations. Well, 2 big factors. This is the first fantasy racquetball tournament. There's no way I'm losing to him. This is the first one. The other one, we're coming off a big break from the pandemic. I'll be healthy, no injury free, so I'll be in shape. There's no way I'm losing that match. I think I have my notes here.
It's so interesting that you got notes, Alvaro, to be honest. I always have my notes.
Well, that was part of my notes, what I just said. But Parrilla's only chance is to get me tired, prolonged rallies, but not this time. I'm going to be in pretty good shape. I'll be motivated. I think I get him. He'll show his quickness and his backhand pinch is gonna come out once and twice. but I haven't been winning this game in two.
In
You need
two?
scores?
Yeah, what's your scores?
My scores 15-4, 15-8.
Wow, that's a beatdown.
That's a beatdown.
That means, Alvaro, you have to score 30 points. Isn't it easier only to get in the
Hey,
tiebreak 11?
like I said, this is the first fantasy tournament. I'm motivated. I'm ready to go.
All right, so
if you ask me in the number 7 or 6 fantasy tournament, it's a different score, different result maybe.
Gotcha. That's very interesting. Okay, so all three of us have Alvaro moving on. Next up, number 1, Kane Waslinchuk taking on number 9, Conrado Moscoso. Alvaro, why don't you go first here?
Here, this is an interesting one. Most people want to see an upset, right? Especially the people from but it won't happen. Kane still has the biggest weapon in the game. His serve is going to be on. Since it's the first fantasy tournament, he will be all business. He'll play like the U.S. Open, and I see him winning in 2 games. The first one, you're going to see the talent of Moscoso. He's going to have a few good serves. He's powerful backhand splat from 40 feet, but it's not going to be enough. It's gonna be in very few moments. So I have him winning 15-8, 15-4. Kane.
Wow, that's interesting. Todd, you're up. What's your thoughts?
So this is the match that most racquetball fans want to see right now. The current king versus a player.
I can't hear Todd. Why is that?
Every time you go to the screen share, his audio must go out. So I don't know what it may be. So.
Yeah. So this is the current king versus a player that a lot of the people in the sport feel could be the next king. And as Alvaro noted, Moscoso certainly has a lot of the package that would make him the heir apparent. He's got a strong junior pedigree, a long history of representing his country. He's got a ton of pace. He drives serves well. He's got unbelievable athleticism on the court to retrieve. Great shot-making ability. He's got everything. And his whole package has been on display on the big stage. He won the Bolivian Grand Slam. He topped Landa, Beltran, and Rocky in that order in that tournament. That's no small feat. He followed that up by showing up for the 2019 U.S. Open and racing to the final, and then having a pretty good showing against Kane in the final. Now, all that being said, this is Kane we're talking about. These two have now met 4 times. The first meeting was kind of in Moscoso's introduction to the world stage. I'm going to scroll down here. Here's their 4 matches. The first time they met, 4, 5, and 8. That's pretty impressive against Kane. At the U.S. Open, the first game was close. The second, not so much. The same way in Arizona. And then this 4th match, Moscoso was hurt, so it's kind of hard to draw much of a judgment from that. When both of these players are 100%, I'm hoping for another 15-12, 15-11 type match. But for right now, Kane retains the upper hand. I take Kane in 2. The first one's going to be close, and the second one's going to be a blowout because Moscoso will be disheartened.
I'm going to agree with you as both. I mean, Moscoso's just not there yet. He gets a lot of points. It was a 2-game win at the U.S. Open for Kane and a quick dismissal of Moscoso in Texas. You want to say injured? It is what it is. He came back and played a week after in Sioux Falls. So Moscoso is not at a level to push Kane right now. Yes, great event, Bolivian Open. It's his home country. Todd, if you were there, Alvaro can agree. The fans, I mean, he could do no wrong from the second he walked into the gym. He had a parade of media on him. I'm sure it was pressure, but he rose to the occasion. And most of the players that from the IRT that were there said the altitude has a lot to do with that. I'm not even sure he can play at a high level for an entire season just yet. I'm not sold on that. He had to come and play event after event after event at a high level, and these guys are not trained for that. Plays well in Bolivia, rose to the occasion at the U.S. Open, but I think since the U.S. Open, he's taken a small step back. Kane in 2 quick ones. I'm not even going to say a 15-12. 15 to it's going to be like 4-4. If he gets 8 points total, that would be a lot. So all three of us have Kane moving on. Pretty good bet. Guys in Vegas will say that's a sure bet right there too. So next up, number 6, Daniel De La Rosa versus number 19, Garay. We have a number 19 seed in the quarterfinals. Took out Rocky Carson in the 16s. I'll go first here. I'm a huge Daniel De La Rosa fan. I think everybody knows that, but let's not discount Garay's win over Rocky Carson. He's also beaten Landa in the past. The last time he was in a quarterfinals appearance was against DLR, and he lost in 2 really quick games. Garay, he has not learned to put together 2 quality matches back to back, and I think that's a mental thing. I just don't think he has that mental step yet there. So same as in Texas, DLR, 2 quick ones. Todd, your take.
So as you noted, DLR 2-0 over Garay on the IRT. He also has a win over him recently in Mexican Adult Nationals, which they won't ever play again because Garay has switched allegiances. Now Garay, I like this player. He's making a move this season. In 7 events, he's made 4 main draws. He's got a quarterfinal this year. He's got solid wins over guys like Acuna, Gerardo Franco. He's got a win over Landa, which is pretty solid. He's got a win over Mania when Mania was playing tough. And when he's lost, he hasn't gone quietly. He's taken games off of DLR, Carson, and our guest here, Alvi, before falling in a tiebreaker. He's 24 now. He's making his move internationally. He's switching allegiances now. He's representing Colombia, and he's going to put some pressure on the long-standing Colombian pair of Sebastian Franco and Mario Mercado to start representing them, and we're going to start to see more of him internationally. Now, all that being said, the player most equipped to handle a guy with the kind of power that Garay has may very well be Daniel De La Rosa. It's his former Mexican compatriot. They're used to each other. And the last time that they met, it wasn't really close. DLR crushed him 6-8 at the Longhorn Open. I see a similar beatdown here. I think it's going to be DLR in 2 games, and it won't be necessarily close. And I've got one other thing. I've got some insider information here. I just happened to be talking to DLR's father-in-law today. And when they was talking to them, they were going into labor too. So hopefully by now we're going to hear about a kid coming today or tomorrow.
Baby DLR. So I have the same thing. So Alvaro, I know he's your doubles partner, but you need to be a little bit objective here. Who's winning this match and why?
Okay, let me start by saying I think this is like the match for the fans, for the people that like to see guys diving and some long rallies and display of athleticism. That's how you say it? Yeah?
Athleticism.
Yeah. But it's a bad matchup for Lalo. It's an amazing player, a lot of talent, but it's a bad matchup for him. I think the hands of De La Rosa in the front court that's away the shots from Garay and his serve. Daniel is too explosive still on his feet, and with his good hands, he takes control of the court. Plus, he has now the knowledge, and he's very patient nowadays, and he'll be making Garay hit tons of ceiling balls, make him shoot from the back till he misses a shot and gives some setups. So I see Daniel winning in 2. A close first game because he needs to adapt to the power of Garay. I see him winning like 15-12, and then the second game a little easier, 15-8.
All right, so all 3 of us have DLR. So far tonight, all 3 of us have the favorites, so to speak. Actually, no, Alvaro, you're not the favorite.
To who?
Perea match. He's higher seed. So, the last up.
Hey,
last up is number 2. Go ahead.
Sorry, I've got Alvi above Andre in my personal rankings. I just want to let you know that's not an upset to me.
Okay, so so here we are. Last up, Landa, number 2 verse 7. Now they're doubles partners also. These series, Sam Murray. The series is tied 2-2. Alvaro, why don't you go first here?
Okay. This is the only match between doubles players, right? So they know each other pretty well. The statistics have reinforced that. I see a close match. This is the only one going tiebreaker for me. But at the end, I see Landa pulling up the W, winning the match because of his cross training. He can play a tough battle and a tough match for as long as it takes. So and his mental game is pretty strong too. So I see Landa winning a tiebreaker, a close one. Three close games, but I'm having Landa going to the semifinals at the end.
Well, thanks, Alvaro. Alvaro, if you want to stick around while me and Todd give our thoughts on this match, feel free. Todd, you're up.
So as you guys noted, these are regular doubles partners.
I will, man. Thank you. Todd, why can't I hear you when you talk? You did it on purpose?
No.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Our producer, Mark, but
it's got to be technical difficulty.
See you guys. I'll watch you on live.
So, Alvaro, before you go, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I hope that we get back on the courts real soon because you are an absolute pleasure to watch when this is all over. Take care, Alvaro, okay?
Hey, thank you, guys. Nice talking to you. Todd, Dean, see you soon.
All right. So, Todd, your thoughts on the Landa?
So, as you guys noted, these are regular doubles partners. They're 2-2 against each other on tour, but it's kind of a weird 2-2. Landa beat Murray in South Dakota in 2018 en route to his first ever Tier 1 title. Lost the opener in Laurel in the 2018-19 season opener. Then had an injury-induced forfeit at the Lewis Drug earlier this season. I'm going to scroll down and show you the match history. This Landa hobbled off in this match. This was just not even close. Before Landa just really handled Sam the last time that they faced each other in Chicago. These two know each other's game pretty well, and they're great at complement to each other on the doubles court. But in singles, Landa's just a step ahead. His consistency on tour has really stepped up. He's solidified his hold on the number 2 ranking, and it's going to be hard for him to get supplanted at this point. He's been consistent week in and week out, and I think he moves on at this juncture in 2 games in a similar scoreline to what you see right here, like 6-9 or 7-10.
All right. Well, although Murray won in Sioux Falls, it was an injury, as we all alluded to. Chicago, Landa dismissed him like pretty easily. I went to the doctor in Sioux Falls with Landa, so he had a little bit of a strain there, so that it was a legitimate injury. But Murray has been in the top 8 for a long time, holding off those players that me and you have talked about, Todd, that are supposed to make the jump into the top 8. The Portillos finally did, and Moscoso moved out. But the Rodrigo Montoyas, if Moscoso stayed, it would be a Portillo, a Jake Bredenbeck. Those are the 7, 8, 9, and 10. But Murray's been there the whole time. And he's consistently in the quarterfinals and only twice was in the semifinals. And it isn't one of those semifinal times. This season, he hasn't beaten a player ranked in front of him, other than Landa and the injury. He hasn't physically beat him. Landa, again, we say it all the time, he's number 2 for a reason. Always shoots the bottom board, as me and Fabio like to say, and is usually successful against everyone on tour except the king. Landa in 2. That's about it. So I'm grabbing the results from this matchup right here. So the results are in on this particular matchup here. Kane will move on. De La Rosa will move on. Alvaro Beltran will move on. He takes out Perea. What a quarterfinal. And Landa will move on. Those are the results. They just got updated. I was pulling them up from R2 Sports as we speak. So,
there we go.
Great quarterfinal matchup. You guys can see the board right there. we are going to take a short break here, and we are going to be back with Hall of Fame inductee, the one, the only, Mr. Gregg Peck, right here on Outside the Rally.
Hey, Coach Fran Davis here. Check out my racquetball tips on the IRT website, or check out my YouTube channel, Fran Davis Racquetball. Now let's get back to the show.
So welcome back, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce Gregg Peck from the 2020 Hall of Fame inductee class. Gregg, welcome to the show, and thank you for coming.
Hi, Dean. Glad to be here. Hey, you had three of my favorite people that I rarely get to see on, and between you and Todd and Alvy, really wish I could be around you guys more often. So it's great to be here, and thanks for having me.
Hey, Gregg, that was some pretty good insight from Beltran. He did his homework.
Yeah, he had notes and everything, and I like the nickname. I hadn't heard it before, the Mexican Magician.
Well, Fabio called him the Magician. In the beginning, I used the word, and I still like it. I called him the Mexican Monster, and there was some fans that just said it was too derogatory. I spoke with Alvaro. He didn't say anything about it. But when Fabio started using the Magician, and I watch him up close, I mean, what he does with the ball, he's a magician. I get it.
Yeah, that's a perfect nickname for him. And, I noticed he made his hair disappear too. So
I know. Well, speaking of hair, I need a barber to open real soon. But let's get right in. I have a couple of questions for you. What an impressive racquetball career, both professionally and as an amateur, and more importantly, as a junior. And that's really important today, that juniors continue to play racquetball. Your overall record is 147 wins and 76. That's as per ProRacquetballStats.com. What is your most memorable win and why?
So are we talking juniors, pros?
No, that's your pro. That's your pro record. So okay. I'm interested in your pro career. And what was your memorable win there?
Yeah, so there were some big ones, but I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than winning. In my day, the DP Nationals were the biggest and the granddaddy of them all. So that was in '85, and I beat Andy Roberts in the quarters, Hogan in the semis, and Yellen in the finals. So yeah, that was a pretty good win, and really just accelerated my career at that point. And so that has to be the biggest of them all.
That I didn't know that you beat them back to back. So that's extremely impressive, and I can understand how it's memorable. So Gregg, rumor has it that you kind of changed the game of racquetball. Most players, they played error-free racquetball, including yourself, and waiting for opponents to make mistakes and then capitalizing on there. But I'm told you created offensive shots from the deep in the back of the court. Did you invent the splat? And if so, how did that happen?
No, that's actually a funny story, because one of the things that, I just always love watching racquetball. Even, when I was at the top of my game, I loved watching other players play their matches. But when I was coming up as a junior player, I would go to these pro stops, as a tag along little brother with Dave. And so I would watch everyone play. And I was watching Hogan play, and he was playing in the semis, and someone hit a wide angle pass on him that came around and off the back wall, and he was going to get it, and the ball was really tight on the backhand side, on the left side, and he took it, and he just, as hard as he could, he just kind of jammed it into the side wall and hit a winner, and it was a splat, and I saw the ball come off the side wall in a different way. And I was probably 16 or 17 at the time. And I mean, it just crystallized in my head. I was like, that was different, And so I think Marty maybe hit that shot one more time in the tournament. I really didn't see him hit that shot very much. And I didn't know if he was trying to do that or if it was just forced on him to do that. So anyway, after that tournament on the next like Monday or Tuesday, Dave and I are gonna work out, and I pull him up to the side court. I said, "Hey, come here. I want to show you something. I've kind of been working on this and I saw Marty hit this shot, and I don't know if he was trying to do it or not, but look what happens." And he was like, "Wow, that's amazing." And so I just started working on that shot from the left side, the right side, and I got pretty good at it. And then what really changed was when I started taking it off a ceiling ball deep and bringing it down with my height and power and splatting it from, 39 feet as a winner. And so, once I started doing that, there were a lot more people that started to do that. So I don't want to take credit for inventing it, but maybe I perfected it.
Well, I know that there's a ton of racquetball players, not only pro players today, that appreciate whomever invented or stopped or started that type of thing, because it's one of the fanciest shots in the world other than a flat rollout. I mean, but it's absolutely amazing.
I think I really just improved on what I saw. That was my success. I mean, most of my game style is really a combination of 3 or 4 other players, and that makes up about 95% of my game back in the day. And then the other 5% was, me creating my own style and my own shots, and that was one of them. And once I started doing that, you started seeing a lot more players incorporated into their game, and now, you don't see any good player that can't hit that shot from both sides.
No, if a player can't do that, they're not playing at a high level. So interesting that you brought up your brother. What was it like playing professional racquetball with an older brother on the pro tour at the same time?
Well, it was great. I mean, not only did we were able to travel together and coach each other and help each other, but we were able to cheer for each other, and it was great because we could strategize against our opponents, and we just knew each other so well, and traveling together was so comfortable. I laugh because Dave and I laugh about it because we were just creatures of habit, and we would get up and go have breakfast, and I mean, we always had breakfast at the same place, depending on the tournament, but we'd always go to the same breakfast spot. And literally we'd go have breakfast for an hour and wouldn't even probably say a word to each other hardly, read the paper, have coffee, eat breakfast. And it was just almost silence, but it was just that comfortable silence, and so it was great. And, a lot of it was, he opened the door for me in a lot of ways. I took advantage of my opportunities that he opened the door for me with, but there were a lot of definitely a lot of perks of being Dave Peck's brother. But there was also some things that weren't so good, which was having to play him sometimes.
I bet you there. So now let's go into life after racquetball. How, as an athlete, were you prepared? And most importantly, what advice can you give to current players about life after racquetball?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dean, because, when I stopped playing racquetball, it was a little quicker than I really wanted to. I think I was 26, maybe 27, when I quit playing, and it really wasn't necessarily by choice. My contract was up with DP at the time, and I had gone through the peak of racquetball, and it had plateaued out. And at that point in time, there really wasn't a lot of bidding for my services. I was still ranked 5th or 6th at the time, and so I really just kind of decided, I think I better figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up. And so anyway, I had some contacts through I was sponsored by Nike for 4 years, and I ended up meeting a really good friend in Austin that worked for Nike at the time, and he switched over to work for Reebok, and when in Reebok's heyday, and I told him, I said, hey, I'm really trying to. I think racquetball is over. This road has come to an end, and I need to figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up. And he's like, have you ever thought about, the sporting goods industry or footwear or apparel? And so he got me into the footwear and apparel business, and I've been doing it ever since. And so I've worked for some great companies. I mean, I worked for Nike. I work for Puma now. And I've just worked for some great companies, and I wouldn't have any of what I have today if it weren't for racquetball and that break. So the advice that I would give to young racquetball players is that I think that they're in a position where people want to meet them, and that's a good position to be in. And I was always open. And it's kind of, my parents taught me this, but Dave was very much this way, very open to meeting new people and, giving people time. And you never know who you meet and you run into. And, I would have never thought that, meeting this guy, Gregg is his name, from when he worked at Nike at the time, that, he would be someone who helped me get into my next career. And so, I think you have to be open to meeting new people and, being gracious, and you never know what doors are going to open for you.
So it basically comes down to relationships.
Yeah. And, Dave was always, really big on developing relationships, and, people always said Dave was one of the greatest guys off the court, and so there were just so many opportunities that opened up for us, just because we developed relationships as we went through our careers.
That's interesting. I see a question in the chat box, and I definitely want to bring it up. So Sudsy is there. He said, ask him about when he met Jason and Sudsy for the first time.
Hey, Suds, good to see you, man. I see him every day on Facebook. Yeah, so Dave and I did camps up in Poughkeepsie, New York, which you're familiar with, Dean, that area. It's beautiful. So we're doing camps. I can't remember if Winterton had come in yet. He joined us a year or two after we started doing them. And so we would do an adult kind of 3-day camp, and then we would do a junior camp in between during the week. And then on the weekend, we'd do another adult camp. So we would have 50 kids come in on, it was either Sunday or Monday, and we'd have them all the way through Friday. Well, these two 10-year-old kids, I think that was how old they were. It was Jason and Sudsy come in the club for the camp. And I mean,
they were probably louder than everybody else in the camp.
Oh my God. I think they already had an entourage. I mean, it was unbelievable. And, we got them on the court. Well, I mean, they walk into the court to the club, and I mean, within 10 minutes, they're on the glass court. I think it was a 3-wall glass or 2-wall glass, sidewall, back wall, maybe. And I mean, these kids were on there, and they were awesome at 10 years old. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, this is incredible, because, Dave and I have always had a passion for juniors, and it was awesome. And I mean, we had them for the whole week. And I mean, I swear to God, they were on the glass court more than Dave and I were. And, Dave was ranked 1 or 2 at the time, and I was probably, 6 or 7 at the time. And Dave and I would do an exhibition, for the camp, and, we'd get 100 people to watch. Sudsy and Jason were on there, and they'd have about 200 people watching.
Well, I do recall them in those days. I've known them since then as well. So I definitely totally understand what you're saying. So excellent, insights to the game of racquetball, Gregg. You were live at the U.S. Open last year, and you saw a lot of the guys playing. So would you stick around and help us with the semifinals of our fantasy tournament here? That'd be good?
Sure. Be glad
Okay,
to.
excellent. Thank you so much. So let's welcome back in Todd Boss to the show, and we'll get right on these semifinals. So first matchup, Alvaro Beltran. We just talked to Alvaro, taking on number 1, Kane Waslinchuk. Kane has an overall record against Alvaro of 48-5. So Gregg, you saw Kane right up close. What do you think of this matchup?
Yeah, well, the easy answer is to say Kane wins, right? But I think a lot of it depends on Alvy and how he plays. And I think that when he's motivated, he's one of the players that can give Kane a little bit of a hard time because he is crafty, and that's where your nickname for him comes from. But I just think that Kane just has too many strengths. I mean, and really, after watching him at the U.S. Open, which is one of the first probably times I've seen him play in probably 10 years, he just really has no weaknesses. And the only weakness that I could see possibly ever kicking is boredom. And he just doesn't come off like he's, got this in the bag. And after listening to him, you interview him, one of the things he thinks about is, hey, I might lose this match. And so he's always motivated. So I really think that Kane just has too much firepower for Alvy.
So you're taking Kane. So Todd, I'll go first here, and I agree with you. If anyone can take out Kane, it's Alvaro. He was the last one to do it in Florida last season. But 3 out of the 5 Alvaro wins against Kane was between 2000 and 2003. That's a long way away. Since they played twice, with Kane winning easily in Texas, 15-1, 15-2, and then at the Lou, which is in Wisconsin, and Kane won 15-7, 15-0. If my memory serves me well, Alvaro was winning game 1 either 6-0 or 7-0. I think it was 6-0, and then ended up losing 15-7, 15-0. It was a huge run for Kane. He just walked all over him and not letting him score a point. That's impressive. Kane in 2, he rarely goes to a tiebreaker. 2 quick games, Kane Waslinchuk. Todd?
Yeah. Yeah, your memory of that match is right. That was, I believe, he won 29 straight points at this match here, and then this match here, I may or may not have remembered, but Alvy might have had a ding right there. He doesn't usually lose 1 and 2. In fact, you look at the scores, a lot of time Alvaro is getting significant numbers of points in these games versus Kane. Also notable, we talked about the win that Alvy had in Sarasota last April. Alvaro also had another famous win. He was the last person to beat Kane on the court before Kane went on his 134-match winning streak. Why does Alvy fare well against Kane in general? Well, because he can absorb the power. He's used to power. Alvaro is a guy who came up playing against guys with just as much power as Kane. Cliff and Sudsy and Ellis and whatnot. And he can make shots from anywhere in the court at any angle. So if Kane's not spot on his serves, Alvy steps over, buries the return, and he's back in the box. And so that's a lot. When you see score lines like 6 and 12 or Alvy taking him in a breaker, that's a lot of what you're seeing.
See Alvaro saying in the chat box, he played with broken strings. I don't know about that, Alvy.
Well, but like anything, beating Kane means you have to play perfect racquetball for an hour and a half. And frankly, right now, nobody can do that. Players generally can play really well for stretches, but not enough to beat him. So I think at the end of the day, Kane wins this in 2.
Yeah, I think Alvaro would agree with us. So the next match, Gregg, number 2, Alex Landa versus number 6, Daniel De La Rosa. Let's Todd go first.
All right.
Series 9-3, correct, Todd?
So right now, these guys are neck and neck in my personal rankings, irrespective of their seeds here. And this is a fantastic matchup. These guys have played a bunch of 11-10 matches recently, and oftentimes their matches come down to just 1 or 2 rallies over the course of an hour-and-a-half match. Now, Landa has been dominant on the RT lately. He's 9-3 overall. He's 10-5 over DLR if you include a couple of known Mexican nationals meetings. But more interestingly, and I'm going to scroll down on the screen here, Landa has beaten him in the last 6 times that they've played professionally. The last time DLR beat him was at the 2017 Sioux Falls event, which I believe he then went on to win. This is a rematch of the semis in Chicago, where we saw a really tight match, 13, 12, and 7. These guys play good, solid racquetball. They play very not similar styles, in that Landa kind of has a very unique style in the way he plays. But DLR, he needs to be relaxed on the court, and he plays better when it looks like he's almost not caring about the way he plays. But for me, I'm going to go based on the run of form. 6 straight wins, Landa over De La Rosa. I think he's going to beat him, and it's going to be another 11-10, like this match here and this match here. Landa in a tiebreaker, 11-10.
That's my favorite. 11-10 breakers. Gregg, you're up. What's your thoughts?
God, Dean, it always scares me when I agree with Todd so much. No, I didn't know that. Every time I talk with Todd, there's always something I learn. And most of the times it's about myself, but in this case, I didn't realize that Landa had won the last 6 times. That's a lot. It's hard to get out of your head when someone's beaten you 6 straight times. I know my brother did that to me on tour. He beat me 6 straight times before I beat him in a pro stop, and that's mental. It's way more mental than physical. So, and I do agree with Todd that, these guys are 2 very athletic guys. I love the way De La Rosa plays. Landa's very physical and just hits the ball. And so, yeah, I agree. I think it's a tiebreaker, and I think it's, somewhere between 11-8 and 11-10. These guys are that evenly matched. So based on what, Todd's facts are, I probably have to go with Landa for a 7th time.
I do recall saying it right before the final of the semifinals in Chicago that Landa has beaten him like the last 5 times. So I'm well aware of that. I'm torn here because I love both of these players' game styles and I would think DLR will prevail. So I'm going to disagree with you two. Landa has shown time and time again why he's number 2. I'll always say that until someone moves him out of the way. And I don't think that's anytime soon. But since 2017, although he hasn't beaten Landa, the games are close. So they're literally, a skip away. And when we talk about Landa, we talk about hitting bottom board. He usually prevails. Today, I'm calling an upset, 11-10 tiebreaker, because I love 11-10. That's my thoughts, and I don't know. 2 against 1, I may lose. I don't know. So anyway, well, Gregg, thank you so much for coming on tonight. One last question before you go.
Sure.
Winner take all. You've seen them play at their highest level. Hogan versus Kane. Who wins and why?
That's a great question. You see it on Facebook a lot, and I think there's like Todd would probably agree. Metrics just tell certain things, but you have to add color to the metrics. So there's a lot of questions that you have to ask. Is they're both in their prime. What rackets are they using? What ball are they playing with? And I just think it comes down to, it's a very similar conversation with, that's going on right now with the Last Dance shows that are going on ESPN with Jordan and the Bulls. You can talk about MJ, he was the greatest, right? But, you look at LeBron and he's just a beast, and who's better? So, I just go through, I was thinking about this earlier because I thought that might come up. And I really think it's 50-50. It is a coin toss. if they played 10 matches, I think it'd be 5-5 because, they have Marty at his peak had every strength that there is, and he is some kind of competitive. I mean, I know Kane is too, but Marty is super competitive, and the one thing that he has that a lot of players can't do is Marty doesn't get overpowered. He never got overpowered by Harnett or really Cliff, at the time. So Kane's power off of his serve wouldn't necessarily overpower Marty, which I think is a big point to make, because when I watch Kane play, if he's serving well, I would say 75 to 80% of his shots, after he serves, his next shot is somewhere around the 5-foot line or the short line, somewhere in there, front court. And a lot of times it's a forehand. You're not going to beat Kane that way. But I think if you go through service return, shot selection, intensity levels, athleticism, they're equal all the way across the board. So I know I'm straddling the fence on this, but
that's perfectly fine, because that's why it's out there. When you're talking about two different eras, who's the greatest of all time? Who can do this? Who can do that? Totally understandable.
Here's the thing that Marty had that made him great is he had everything that you could have as a player, but he had incredible charisma. And I'm not saying Kane doesn't. Kane does. But Marty brought people out to the club. He brought the media to the club. And he always had a story for the media to tell. And that was one of the greatest things about playing in the era that I played was, I got so many interviews from TV stations who came out to interview Marty, and they needed one other player, and they would interview me. And so that was one of the things that, I'll always appreciate about Marty is that he knew how to put on a show and play at the highest level at the same time.
100% agree. Congratulations, Gregg, on your Hall of Fame induction. It is absolutely well deserved. And to be honest, it was my privilege to have you on the show tonight. I thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you at the Hall of Fame induction when it happens. I know it's coming up soon. I believe they're going to try to do it at the U.S. Open, I think.
Yeah, I look forward to it, Dean. Thanks a lot, and good to see you, Todd.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, we will take a short break, and we will be back with the results of the semifinals and the final match right here on Outside the Rally.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Just like all of you, I had trouble sleeping. I tried every pillow out there and nothing worked. That's why over 10 years ago, I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs so you get to sleep faster and you stay there longer. I make all of my pillows right here in the USA, and I have a 60-day money-back guarantee.
Take advantage of my famous offer and get 2 MyPillow premiums for one low price. Call or go to MyPillow.com. Be sure to use the promo code and I'll give you free shipping.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back, Todd. So, Kane moves on in a tough match against Alvaro Beltran. Landa moves on in a 11-10 tiebreaker. So, Todd, here we are, 1 versus 2. Kane leads this 17-1. Todd, what is your take?
Well, it's 1 versus 2 on tour right now, but it's a pretty lopsided rivalry. Kane leads 17-1, and that one was a walkover when Kane missed out on a tournament. So it's hard to go with anybody besides Kane. But let's talk about this a little bit. Landa has shown when he's on, he can hang with Kane, for spurts at least. And often what I see when Kane and Landa play is them trading blows at the beginning of the game, and you'll see the matches go three. The game goes 3-3, 3-3, 4-4. Landa hangs with him, but then all of a sudden, Landa gets to like 7-7, 8-8, and then suddenly Kane flips a switch, and in 2 minutes it's 15-8 game one. So what Landa has to worry about here is he's a notorious slow starter. He falls behind a lot in the first games. He drops a lot of first games off to the players where he shouldn't be dropping. So Landa needs to come to the court prepared, ready to go, and ready to fight from the first point. He's in the finals. Of course, he's gonna be prepared. Meanwhile, Kane is just relentless. I've just never seen a player with his combination of skills. He's got the power game of Swain, the shot making ability of Alvaro, and the front court hands of someone like a Jack Cusack. He doesn't need it much. He can also dive and has the retrieving game of some of the best players out there. It's just a ridiculous package of racquetball skills. And it's the reason that he's the GOAT. At the end of the day, I think he wins this, and I think it's going to be like I'm going to guess that Landa's on today, and Kane wins 15-7, 15-7.
Okay, 7-7. That's pretty impressive. Well, you know what? Landa's only win was a forfeit, like we said. In 2012, Landa won a game, but since 2018, he has not scored more than 10 points in a game against Kane. Kane has won in every single event this season that he has entered, correct? Or he showed up on 7 out of 10. And he only lost one game all season to Rocky Carson, and that was after beating him 15 to -1. Will Kane win? Of course. I think the question is how many points will his opponent score when he's in the finals? Kane said it himself. He goes, I play different when it's the finals. He played a Mario Mercado at the Lou, and I remember Kane interviewing Kane after, and Kane said, I wanted Mario Mercado to know this was a finals, and I'm different. So that's interesting. He's just relentless, and he hates to lose. The U.S. Open for Kane was a great game one, and everyone thought Moscoso, could pull it out. He had 12 points. But game two was a blowout. When Kane wins game one, game two, he's got zero pressure, and his opponent is just usually crawls inside the court. Here are how many points his opponent got in finals just this season, including one game he lost. 8 points total, 5 points, 19 points, 15, 11, 17, and 18. So can Landa win just one game and force a tiebreaker? I don't think he's shown that yet. Kane wins. I'm going to say it's even less than that, 15-4, 15-5. So maybe a 9-point total for me right there. So let me just check the R2 Sports because the match is in here. And Kane did move on, Todd. And it was 15-8 and 15-2 in the game two. So there you have it. Total points 10. Kane takes the first ever fantasy tournament. Was there a doubt, Todd?
No, there was not a doubt. Kane, when he's been interviewed recently, he said something along the same lines. I'm paraphrasing him. It's more of a story when someone takes a game off of him than when we don't even talk about the concept of him, winning a tournament or winning a match. We're shocked when he doesn't destroy players, when he doesn't, take out the bracket without getting even somebody to double-digit points, and so we're witnessing something amazing, and right now I wonder how much longer he'll continue to show this kind of dominance.
Again, if he shows up, it's almost an automatic. So what a great fantasy bracket. To the top 24 players in the IRT, this was strictly for fun, a what if. And personally, I would love to see a tournament where the top 24 are actually there. Usually there's a few missing, which depending on who's missing will throw off the whole matchups here. We had so many matchups in the round of 32s that have never played before. And that's kind of ironic. Me and you talked about that in the beginning, Todd, when we had this concept. So to the players on tour, I hope we haven't offended any single one of you players. And honestly, I personally respect every one of you guys for what you do on the court. You are true competitors. So thank you for that. But Todd, now the purpose of this was for the fan bracket. That's the ultimate goal here. So now we're going to shift over to the fans. Let's look at the leaderboard. I think Mark had it up right there. So the winner is, I'm pulling it up on mine so that I can see it, and I can't see it. But anyway, we have 3 winners right there. It is Chris Weber is in second. Mark Boschler is in first. And it looks like there's a tie for second place. John Rafkin and Rory Lamps. So I will correct the brackets and I will look through them, and who wins the tiebreaker is based on total points in that final game. So first place will win a head racket. Let me get my notes here. Second place will win a Fran Davis DVD, and third place will win a signed IRT player plaque right here, signed by Kane Waslinchuk. So this is third place. So I will reach out to the winners. Unbelievable, just in my opinion here. We haven't had anyone with a perfect bracket, Todd, and we already went over the 3 prizes. So, Todd, what's your final thoughts, not only of our fantasy tournament, but the whole option of creating a fan bracket? And are you ready to start creating a bracket when we have real live tournaments?
So I think that this exercise, I hope that it's shown, A, how easy it is to do the fantasy bracket, and B, to give everybody an opportunity to play along at home and to put your money where your mouth is. Every week when I do a preview, when I preview one of these tournaments, I basically am doing exactly what we just did. I'm predicting out a bracket so that I can, and then I write it up, and I put my money where my mouth is. And I know that a lot of people take great pride in pointing out to me on Facebook how wrong I am all the time. Well, now's your chance.
Alvaro is one of them.
Oh, I owe Alvaro a big apology. I keep predicting him to lose, and he just keeps showing up, and he's like, I'm not losing. Interesting, funny story. I was talking to Thomas Carter once at an event, and he's like, oh, yeah, you're the guy that keeps saying I lose all the time. I'm like, ugh. He's like, that's okay. Every time you say you think I'm going to lose, that means that I'm going to go try to prove you wrong.
That's motivation for Alvaro too, because sometimes we do show up at the tournament. He's like, Todd has me losing again. So hopefully this is all ready for us to roll out, and we'll be doing something like this on Monday nights, on Wednesday nights before a tournament, where we can break down the bracket and get people to sign up. I'm looking forward to it. So final thoughts, Todd?
Final thoughts. Hey, this was great. Thanks to you, Dean, for allowing me to participate. Thanks for everybody to come on, and I can't wait to do something to do this next.
All right, Todd. Well, you have a nice night. I'm going to get ready to send the fans home. So thank you so much. So that'll be all for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank Alvaro Beltran first, Hall of Famer Gregg Peck, for joining us tonight. Huge thanks to Todd Boss, and most importantly from ProRacquetballStats.com for his insight on the first fantasy tournament. Thank you to the fans that participated in our fan bracket. Remember, we need some creative name for that bracketology, whatever you want to call it. So think of something creative and shoot me an email or a message on Facebook. You can also email it right to the IRT. We'll get it. So hopefully one of the fans will be able to name this type of thing. Need to personally thank once again, I'm going to call you our producer, Mr. Mark Gibbs, back handling all the controls for this event. This does not happen without you. Thank you so much for what you do. Our next show, ladies and gentlemen, is next Wednesday night of Outside the Rally. It'll be 1 week from today, May 6th, and we are going to have 2 of Racquetball's innovators right here. One is the CEO of Gearbox Sports, Mr. Rafael Filippini, and the director of streaming of the IRT, Mr. Pablo Faje. It's going to be a great show. I am personally looking forward to that one. So, ladies and gentlemen, good night from outside the rally.